The research station floated silently in the darkness of space, its metal walls gleaming under the light of distant stars. Inside the station, 27 alien students from 14 different worlds worked at their study desks. They had come here for one purpose: to learn about the newest species to discover faster-than-light travel. They had come to study humans. Dr. Veltar stood at the main viewing window, watching Earth spin slowly in the distance. The blue and green planet looked peaceful from here. His crystalline body caught the light and threw rainbow patterns across the floor. As the lead researcher for this program, he felt proud of what they had accomplished in 3 years of watching humanity. Next to him stood his assistant, Bluekin, whose green amphibious skin glistened under the station lights. The young Kethmore had proven to be excellent at organizing data and keeping the students focused on their work. "The human supply ship will arrive soon," Bluekin said in his soft, watery voice. "Commander Morrison sent word they are bringing fresh food and new equipment." Dr. Veltar nodded with satisfaction. The humans had been very helpful with their research. They allowed the alien students to observe their daily lives, study their culture, and even visit their planet for short periods. Most species in the galaxy were not so open with newcomers. Across the research station, the alien students worked at their various projects. Each one studied a different aspect of human behavior. Some focused on human art and music. Others examined their strange habit of keeping small, furry animals as companions. A few brave students had even volunteered to spend time on Earth itself, living among humans in their cities. Zekathan, a tall mantis-like creature from the Velkari homeworld, looked up from his computer screen. His forearms moved quickly as he typed notes about human social structures. "I still do not understand why humans form emotional bonds with members of other species," he said to his study partner. "My research shows they even name their mechanical devices and spacecraft. This behavior serves no logical purpose." His partner, a floating jellyfish-like being called Moresh, pulsed with different colors as she thought. "Perhaps it helps them work together better," she suggested. "Humans seem to cooperate more than most species we have studied." Near the station's central hub, 3 students from the reptilian Sectar race discussed their findings about human military organization. They found it puzzling that humans promoted leaders based on qualities like courage and loyalty instead of pure strength or cunning. "Their military structure is inefficient," observed Nexar, his scales shifting from green to brown as he spoke. "They waste time on ceremonies and traditions that serve no tactical purpose. Yet somehow their forces remain effective in simulations." Dr. Veltar had heard similar comments from many of his students over the past 3 years. Humans seemed to do many things that made no sense from a purely logical standpoint. They spent enormous amounts of time and resources on activities that did not directly help their survival. They created art, music, and stories. They played games with no practical purpose. They formed deep emotional connections with creatures that could not help them in any meaningful way. Most puzzling of all was how they treated their young. The research station had extensive files on human child-rearing practices. Unlike most galactic species, humans kept their children close for many years. They did not send them away to specialized training facilities or abandon the weak ones to focus resources on the strong. Instead, human adults seemed to devote massive amounts of time, energy, and resources to caring for their offspring, even when those children showed no immediate signs of exceptional ability. The alien students found this behavior particularly strange because humans had relatively few children compared to other species. Most galactic races produced dozens or hundreds of offspring at once, knowing that only the strongest would survive to adulthood. Humans typically had only 1 or 2 children at a time, then spent years protecting and nurturing each one. "It appears to be a very inefficient reproductive strategy," Dr. Veltar had noted in his reports to the Galactic Educational Consortium. Yet somehow humans have managed to spread across multiple star systems in a remarkably short time period. Soft chime indicated an incoming transmission from the approaching human supply ship. Dr. Veltar moved to the communication console and activated the screen. Commander Jake Morrison appeared, his weathered face showing the easy smile that humans seem to wear so often. "Good morning, Dr. Veltar," Morrison said in his friendly tone. "Hope your students are ready for another week of studying us strange humans. We have those sensor readings you requested, plus some fresh fruit from Earth. My crew thought your people might enjoy trying some new flavors." This was another puzzling human trait. They constantly offered gifts and favors with no expectation of payment or benefit. The consortium had warned that this might be some form of subtle manipulation, but 3 years of observation had shown no evidence of hidden motives. Humans simply seemed to enjoy being helpful and generous. "Thank you, Commander," Dr. Veltar replied. "Your assistance has been invaluable to our research. My students have prepared several new questions about human social behavior, if you have time to answer them." Morrison's smile grew wider. "Always happy to help. Oh, and Dr. Carter will be joining us this trip. She is bringing her daughter Lucy for a short visit to the station. I hope that won't interfere with your work." Dr. Veltar felt a flutter of excitement. Dr. Emily Carter was the human xenobiologist who served as their cultural liaison. She had helped explain many confusing aspects of human behavior over the past year. More importantly, she had a young child, and the alien students had rarely had the chance to observe human child-parent interactions up close. "That would be excellent for our research," Dr. Veltar said. "Several of my students are working on projects related to human family structures." After ending the communication, Dr. Veltar called his students together for a brief meeting. He explained that they would have a unique opportunity to observe a human child during the supply ship's visit. The students gathered around him with obvious interest. Most of them came from species where children were raised communally or sent away from their parents at a young age. The intense bond between human parents and children was unlike anything in their own cultures. "Remember to maintain proper observation protocols," Dr. Veltar reminded them. "Humans can be quite sensitive about their young. Do not approach the child directly without permission from the parent. And do not make any sudden movements or loud noises that might be interpreted as threatening." Zekathan raised one of his 4 arms. "Why are humans so protective of their offspring? Most species allow researchers to study their young without concern." Dr. Veltar considered the question carefully. "From our observations, humans seem to view their children as extremely precious. They invest enormous amounts of resources in each individual offspring. This makes them very cautious about allowing others near their young." The explanation satisfied most of the students, though a few still looked puzzled by the concept. Species like the Velkari produced hundreds of eggs at once and left them to develop independently. The idea of forming intense emotional bonds with individual children was difficult for them to understand. As the human supply ship approached the docking bay, Dr. Veltar reflected on how much they had learned about humanity over the past 3 years. The humans were indeed a fascinating species, full of contradictions and puzzling behaviors. They seemed driven by emotions rather than pure logic, yet they had achieved remarkable technological progress in a very short time. Their art and music showed incredible creativity and depth of feeling. Their scientific research was innovative and thorough. Their social structures promoted cooperation and mutual support in ways that most species found inefficient but somehow effective. Most intriguingly, humans seemed to possess an unusual capacity for both great gentleness and great violence. They could create beautiful works of art one moment and wage devastating wars the next. They showed incredible kindness to other species, yet their history was filled with conflicts among themselves. Dr. Veltar believed that understanding this duality was key to truly comprehending human nature. His students had observed humans during peacetime when they focused on building, creating, and exploring. But he suspected there were aspects of humanity that only emerged under different circumstances. The docking clamps engaged with a soft metallic sound, and Dr. Veltar prepared to greet their human visitors. He looked forward to observing Dr. Carter's interactions with her child. Perhaps this would provide new insights into the mysterious bond between human parents and their offspring. He had no idea that he was about to witness something that would change everything the alien students thought they knew about humanity. In just a few days, they would discover what happened when that protective instinct was truly tested. They would learn that the gentle, creative beings they had been studying were capable of becoming something entirely different when their children were threatened. For now, though, Dr. Veltar simply waited to welcome their guests, confident that his students had developed a thorough understanding of human nature. Soon they would learn how wrong they were. The morning shift had just begun on the research station when the communication array started flashing red warning lights. Student operator Zekthan was monitoring the subspace channels when a broken transmission cut through the usual background noise of interstellar traffic. The signal was weak and filled with static. Words came through in fragments, mixed with the harsh crackling of damaged equipment. Zekthan adjusted his forearms across the control panel, trying to clean up the audio signal with his practiced skill at communications technology. Emergency. This is Colony Ship New Horizon, under attack. Requesting immediate assistance. The mantis-like alien student felt his breathing passages tighten with excitement. This was exactly the kind of real-world event that made their research so valuable. He quickly activated the recording system and began trying to trace the signal's origin point. Dr. Veltar hurried over when he heard the alarm sounds. His crystalline body reflected the red warning lights as he examined the readouts on Zekthan's screen. "Can you determine the source location?" he asked. "Working on it now," Zekthan replied, his mandibles clicking as he concentrated. "The signal is coming from approximately 3 days travel time from here at maximum burn speed. The transmission is very damaged, but I believe it originates from a human vessel." More words came through the static. 1,500 souls aboard, including 300 children. Pirates have disabled our engines, demanding surrender of... The signal cut off completely. Dr. Veltar immediately contacted Commander Morrison aboard the supply ship, which was still docked at their station. The human commander's face appeared on the communication screen within seconds, his usual friendly expression replaced by sharp concern. "Commander, we have intercepted what appears to be a distress call from one of your colony ships," Dr. Veltar explained. "The vessel identifies itself as the New Horizon and reports being under attack by pirates." Morrison's jaw tightened. "Patch me through to that signal immediately. Can you boost the transmission strength?" "I'm afraid the signal has stopped completely," Zekthan reported from his station. "However, I was able to record the fragments we received and determine the approximate location." Within minutes, the research station's main observation deck filled with alien students, all eager to witness how humans would respond to this crisis. Dr. Veltar had called them together because this represented a unique opportunity to study human decision-making under pressure. Commander Morrison stood at the center of the room, reviewing the recorded transmission data on a portable screen. His entire posture had changed from the relaxed, friendly human they knew to something much more focused and intense. The alien students took careful notes of these physical changes. Dr. Emily Carter had also come up from the supply ship when she heard about the emergency. She stood next to Morrison, her scientific training evident in how she analyzed the available information. Her young daughter Lucy remained safely aboard their ship under the care of the crew. "The New Horizon launched 6 months ago," Morrison explained to the assembled group. 1,500 colonists heading to establish our first permanent settlement beyond the solar system. If pirates have disabled them, they are completely helpless out there. Student Moresh pulsed with curious colors as she floated nearby. "What is the standard procedure for your species in such situations?" she asked. Do you negotiate with the attackers for the release of hostages? Morrison looked at her with an expression the alien students found difficult to read. Pirates in this region usually belong to the Scarran Confederacy, he said. They are not interested in negotiation. They take what they want and destroy what they cannot use. Dr. Carter stepped forward, her voice steady, but with an undertone that made several alien students unconsciously move back. Commander, did the transmission mention children specifically? Yes, Morrison replied grimly. 300 children aboard that ship. The change in Dr. Carter was immediate and dramatic. The soft-spoken scientist who had patiently answered their questions about human culture for months suddenly transformed into something the alien students had never seen before. Her pupils dilated until her eyes appeared almost black, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. When she spoke again, her voice carried a tone that made even the predatory species among the students feel uneasy. How long to reach them? She asked, in a voice that was barely above a whisper. 3 days at maximum burn, Morrison answered. But Emily, we have only one ship here. The New Horizon has 1,500 people aboard, and we do not know how many pirate vessels are involved. A rescue attempt could... Dr. Carter cut him off with a sharp gesture. How long? She repeated. The alien students watched this exchange with growing fascination. They had studied human emotional responses extensively, but this was unlike anything in their research files. Dr. Carter's entire body language had shifted. She stood differently, moved differently, even breathed differently. Her transformation was so complete that several students quietly activated their recording devices. Morrison seemed to understand something that the alien observers missed. He nodded slowly and moved to the communication console. I need to contact Earth Command immediately, he said, and every human vessel in this sector. Dr. Veltar felt confused by this response. Commander, surely you do not intend to risk military resources on a rescue mission that has little chance of success. The logical response would be to contact the Galactic Peacekeeping Force and file an official complaint against the pirates. Both humans turned to look at him, and Dr. Veltar felt a chill run through his crystalline structure. The expressions on their faces were completely unlike any human emotions he had cataloged before. Dr. Veltar, Morrison said in a voice that remained calm, but carried an undertone of something dangerous. I appreciate your concern for our safety, but you need to understand something about humans. When our children are threatened, logic becomes secondary. Dr. Carter moved to stand beside Morrison at the communication console. Those pirates made a mistake, she said quietly. They could have taken the adults, the cargo, even the ship itself, and we would have tried to negotiate. But they touched our children. The alien students exchanged glances of confusion. In their cultures, the loss of some young was simply accepted as part of natural selection. Resources were not typically wasted on high-risk rescue missions, especially when the odds of success appeared low. Morrison began broadcasting on emergency frequencies, sending out a call to every human vessel within 50 light years. The alien. Students listened with growing amazement as ship after ship responded to the call. Trade vessels abandoned profitable cargo runs. Scientific expeditions halted important research. Even civilian ships with minimal defensive capabilities volunteered to join the rescue mission. Zekathan raised one of his arms. Commander Morrison, I do not understand this response. You are mobilizing significant resources for a mission that may not succeed. Many of these volunteers have no direct connection to the people aboard the New Horizon. From a logical standpoint, Morrison interrupted him gently but firmly. Zekathan, you are trying to apply logic to something that goes much deeper than logic. Those are our children out there. Every single human who heard that distress call is responding the same way they would if their own family was threatened. Dr. Carter was already working at a secondary console, pulling up tactical information about the region where the New Horizon had gone silent. Her scientific mind was now focused entirely on problems of navigation, ship capabilities, and rescue. logistics. The transformation from gentle researcher to determined warrior was so complete that several alien students began taking detailed notes about this previously unknown aspect of human psychology. The Scar-Ran pirates typically use 12 to 15 vessels for operations of this size, she reported. They will likely be spread out around the colony ship to prevent any escape attempts. If we approach from multiple vectors simultaneously, she continued outlining tactical options with a precision that surprised even Morrison. The alien students realized they were witnessing something their textbooks had never described. The caring, nurturing behavior they associated with human child-rearing was revealing another side, a fierce, protective instinct that seemed to override every other consideration. As reports continued coming in from human vessels throughout the sector, Dr. Veltar began to understand that they were observing something unprecedented. In 3 years of study, they had seen humans during peacetime, focused on building, exploring, and creating. They had cataloged human art, music, literature, and scientific achievements. They had documented the species' unusual capacity for cooperation and emotional bonding, but they had never seen humans when their children were truly threatened. The research station buzzed with activity as the alien students tried to document and understand this new behavior. They watched Morrison coordinate with ship commanders across multiple star systems. They observed Dr. Carter transform from a soft-spoken scientist into what appeared to be a military strategist. They recorded the voices of human volunteers who were willing to risk everything for people they had never met, simply because children were in danger. By the end of the day, 47 human vessels had confirmed their intention to join the rescue fleet. The entire human presence in this sector of space was mobilizing for a single purpose: to save the children aboard the New Horizon. The alien students had come to the research station believing they understood humanity. They thought humans were interesting but predictable, emotional, creative, and generally peaceful. They had studied human culture, technology, and social structures with the confidence of superior observers examining a simpler species. Now, they realized they had been watching humans in their resting state. They had been studying a species that was deliberately restraining its true nature, keeping its deeper instincts carefully controlled and hidden. As the rescue fleet prepared to depart, Dr. Veltar made a note in his research journal that would later become famous throughout the Galactic Educational Consortium. We have been studying humans incorrectly. We observed them building gardens when we should have been watching for the moment someone threatens what they have planted. Within 12 hours of the distress signal, the research station had become the center of the largest military mobilization the alien students had ever witnessed. Ship after ship arrived at the rendezvous point, their engines glowing bright against the darkness of space. The alien observers watched through the viewing ports as humanity gathered its forces with frightening efficiency. Dr. Veltar stood at the main observation window, counting vessels as they appeared. Heavy cruisers from the Earth Defense Force arrived first, their gray hulls bristling with weapons systems. Behind them came exploration ships, their science equipment hastily replaced with whatever armaments their crews could acquire. Even civilian cargo haulers had joined the fleet, their holds converted into makeshift weapon platforms. The alien students had never seen anything like it. In their home civilizations, military responses required weeks of planning, committee, discussions, and careful resource allocation. The idea of dropping everything for a rescue mission seemed completely irrational to most of them. "I count 47 vessels now," reported student Nexar, his reptilian scales shifting from green to brown as he processed what he was seeing. "This represents nearly the entire human military presence in this sector of space. They are risking their complete defensive capability for a single colony ship." Captain Mike Stevens had arrived 6 hours earlier in his heavy freighter, the Iron Will. The alien students watched with fascination as he supervised the installation of mining lasers and kinetic harpoons onto his cargo vessel. When student Morash asked why a civilian merchant would arm his ship for war, Stevens looked at her with genuine confusion. "Those are our kids out there," he said simply. "What else would I do?" This response puzzled many of the alien observers. Stevens had no family connections to anyone aboard the New Horizon. He had never even met the colonists, yet he was willing to risk his life, his ship, and his entire livelihood for strangers. The alien student struggled to understand this behavior pattern. Captain Lisa Rodriguez arrived next in her exploration vessel, the Star Chaser. Her ship was designed for scientific research, not combat, but her crew had worked through the night to mount defensive shields and improvised weapons systems. When Dr. Veltar questioned the wisdom of bringing a research vessel into battle, Rodriguez gave him a look that made his crystalline structure vibrate with unease. "Doctor, with respect, you do not understand what you are dealing with," she said in a voice that remained polite but carried an undertone of steel. When human children are threatened, every adult becomes a warrior. That is not a choice we make. That is what we are. The alien students began documenting these conversations with growing concern. The humans they had studied for 3 years were transforming into something entirely different. The casual friendliness was gone, replaced by cold determination. The easy smiles had disappeared, leaving behind expressions of focused intensity that reminded several students uncomfortably of apex predators. Dr. Emily Carter had taken over one of the research station's conference rooms, converting it into a tactical planning center. The alien students were allowed to observe as she worked with Commander Morrison and the other ship captains to coordinate their rescue mission. Watching her work was like seeing a completely different person. The gentle scientist who had patiently explained human culture was gone. In her place stood someone who analyzed ship capabilities, calculated approach vectors, and planned combat formations with the precision of a military strategist. Her transformation was so complete that student Zekthan began to wonder if humans had some kind of alternate personality that emerged during crises. "The pirates will expect us to approach cautiously," Dr. Carter explained to the assembled captains. "Standard military doctrine would suggest a careful reconnaissance mission, followed by negotiation attempts. They are not prepared for an immediate full-scale assault." Commander Morrison nodded agreement. "The Scar-Ran Confederacy has raided 17 colonies in the past 2 years. In every case, the targeted species followed predictable patterns: diplomatic protests, economic sanctions, eventual negotiation for partial release of hostages. They have never faced a species that responds the way we do." The alien students recorded these planning sessions with academic interest, but also with growing unease. They were beginning to realize that their 3 years of research had only scratched the surface of human nature. The species they thought they understood was revealing capabilities and instincts that appeared nowhere in their academic files. Dr. Veltar attempted to counsel the humans against what he saw as an emotional overreaction. He requested a private meeting with Commander Morrison and Dr. Carter, hoping to appeal to their rational minds. "Commander Dr. Carter, I understand your emotional response to this situation," he began carefully. "However, you must consider the larger implications. The Galactic Educational Consortium represents 27 civilizations. All of them would express sympathy for your loss, but none would risk interstellar war over a single ship." Morrison looked at him with eyes that seemed to look through him rather than at him. When he spoke, his voice carried a calmness that was somehow more frightening than anger would have been. "Dr. Veltar, I appreciate your concern for galactic stability, but you need to understand something fundamental about humans. When our children are threatened, there is no negotiation. There is no compromise. There is no acceptable loss. We do whatever is necessary to bring them home safely." Dr. Carter stepped forward, and Dr. Veltar noticed that her hands were perfectly steady despite the intensity in her voice. "Doctor, your civilizations may have different priorities. You might calculate costs and benefits, weigh risks against rewards, make rational decisions based on statistical probabilities. We understand that approach, but when human children are in danger, those calculations become meaningless. The alien researcher felt a chill pass through his crystalline body. He was beginning to understand that he was not dealing with the humans he thought he knew. This was something else entirely, something his species had never encountered before. But the logical course would be to negotiate, Dr. Veltar insisted. Perhaps you could offer technology, resources, or territorial concessions in exchange for the safe return of the adult colonists. Surely some compromise. Morrison cut him off, with a gesture that was perfectly controlled but carried an unmistakable finality. There will be no negotiation when our children are threatened. None. The alien students who witnessed this exchange would later write extensively about that moment. They realized they were seeing the true face of humanity for the first time. Everything else they had studied, the art, the music, the literature, the scientific achievements, all of it was what humans built when their children were safe. When those children were threatened, something much older and more primal took over. As the human fleet prepared for departure, the alien students observed changes in every individual human they encountered. Ship crews that had been laughing and joking just days before now moved with deadly purpose. Scientists became strategists. Merchants became warriors. Even the ship maintenance workers carried themselves with the focused intensity of soldiers preparing for battle. Student Zekthan made a note that would become part of galactic military doctrine. Humans possess a duality that we failed to recognize. During peacetime, they appear gentle, creative, and emotionally driven. When their young are threatened, they become something unprecedented, a species that will sacrifice everything for the next generation. The most disturbing observation came from Moresh, whose color-changing biology made her sensitive to emotional states. When humans discuss their art or science, they glow with warm colors of joy and curiosity, she reported. When they speak of their threatened children, they burn with colors I have never seen before. It is not anger or fear. It is something much deeper and more dangerous. Dr. Veltar realized that the Galactic Educational Consortium had made a fundamental error in their approach to studying humanity. They had observed humans during their resting state, when their deeper instincts were carefully controlled and channeled into creative pursuits. They had mistaken this restraint for the full extent of human nature. Now they were seeing what evolution had actually created. Persistence hunters who had conquered their own world through sheer determination and were now applying that same terrifying focus to the stars themselves. The humans were not just another spacefaring species. They were something the galaxy had never encountered before. As the rescue fleet prepared to depart, Dr. Veltar made a final entry in his research notes. We have been studying humans during their civilization. We are about to observe them during their war. I fear we are not prepared for what we will witness. The alien students requested permission to accompany the rescue fleet, claiming academic necessity. In truth, they were terrified and fascinated in equal measure. They were about to witness something that would change their understanding not just of humanity, but of what was possible when evolution created a species whose survival strategy was centered entirely around protecting their young. Commander Morrison granted their request with one simple condition. They would observe only. Any interference would result in immediate expulsion from human space. As the fleet began its journey toward the colony ship, the alien students prepared, themselves, to witness humanity at war. They had no idea they were about to see something that would reshape galactic civilization itself. The human fleet left the research station without waiting for official authorization from the Galactic Educational Consortium. Commander Morrison had made it clear that they would not waste time on diplomatic procedures while children remained in danger. The alien students watched through their viewing ports as 47 ships disappeared into hyperspace, carrying them toward whatever awaited at the New Horizons' last known position. Dr. Veltar and his students had been granted permission to accompany the fleet aboard Morrison's flagship, but only as observers. The alien researchers found themselves in a small observation deck, watching the humans prepare for what could become the largest rescue operation in recent galactic history. The journey would take 3 days at maximum burn speed. The alien students expected this time to be filled with nervous waiting and anxious planning. Instead, they witnessed something that would fundamentally change their understanding of human nature. Within hours of departure, every human aboard every ship in the fleet had transformed completely. The casual, friendly beings the aliens had studied for 3 years were gone. In their place were focused, determined warriors who moved with deadly purpose through their ships. Student Zekthan observed the changes from his position on the bridge. The humans no longer engage in casual conversation, he noted in his research journal. They speak only when necessary, and their voices carry none of the warmth we documented during peacetime. It is as if they have become an entirely different species. Captain Mike Stevens provided a perfect example of this transformation. The friendly cargo hauler who had joked with the alien students just days before was now a grim-faced commander, supervising the conversion of his mining equipment into weapons of war. His crew worked in complete silence, their usual laughter replaced by cold efficiency. Dr. Emily Carter had established a tactical coordination center aboard Morrison's ship. The alien students were allowed to observe as she worked with ship captains throughout the fleet, planning their approach to the rescue operation. Watching her was like studying a completely different person. The gentle scientist who had patiently answered their questions about human culture was gone. In her place stood someone who analyzed weapon capabilities, calculated battle formations, and planned military operations with frightening precision. Her transformation was so complete that several alien students began to wonder if humans possessed some kind of alternate personality that emerged during crises. The mining lasers on Stevens' ship can cut through standard pirate armor at close range, she explained to Morrison during one planning session. If we coordinate his approach with Rodriguez's sensor sweeps, we can create overlapping fields of fire that will prevent any escape attempts. Commander Morrison nodded as he studied the tactical displays. What about the civilian evacuation procedures? We need to extract 1,500 people from that colony ship while under fire. Dr. Carter pulled up detailed schematics of the new Horizon's interior layout. Standard colony ships have 6 primary evacuation points. If we can secure even 3 of them, we can begin moving people to safety while the battle continues around us. The alien students recorded these conversations with growing amazement. Dr. Carter was discussing complex military tactics with the same calm precision she had once used to explain human art and literature. Her scientific mind had simply redirected itself toward problems of warfare and rescue operations. Captain Lisa Rodriguez joined them for the next planning session, bringing data from her ship's long-range sensors. Her exploration vessel was not designed for combat, but her crew had worked tirelessly to modify their equipment for military use. We have detected 17 ships in the target area, she reported. 15 appear to be Scar-Ran pirate vessels arranged in a defensive perimeter around 2 larger ships. One of the larger vessels matches the profile of the New Horizon. Morrison studied the sensor data carefully. What about the second large ship? Most likely the pirate flagship, Rodriguez replied. Standard Scar-Ran tactics involve using their command vessel to coordinate attacks while keeping valuable prisoners aboard for protection. Dr. Carter looked up from her tactical calculations with an expression that made several alien students unconsciously step backward. They have the children on their flagship, she said in a voice that was barely above a whisper. The change in the room's atmosphere was immediate and terrifying. Every human present suddenly radiated an intensity that made even the predatory species among the alien students feel like prey. Morrison's hands clenched into fists. Rodriguez's jaw tightened until the muscles stood out like cables. Dr. Carter's eyes seemed to burn with cold fire. Student Morash began pulsing with alarmed colors as her sensitive biology detected the shift in human emotional states. The humans are experiencing something beyond anger, she whispered to her companions. Their biological responses indicate they are entering some kind of predatory state. The alien students had studied human warfare through historical records and military simulations. They knew humans were capable of violence when necessary, but they had never witnessed the psychological transformation that occurred when human children were directly threatened. This was something entirely different from normal military conflict. Over the next 2 days, the alien observers documented changes in every aspect of human behavior. Meal times became brief, efficient affairs with minimal conversation. Sleep. Schedules were reduced to the absolute minimum necessary for physical function. Even routine maintenance tasks were performed with grim determination rather than the casual competence they had observed before. Most disturbing was what happened to human creativity and humor. For 3 years, the alien students had marveled at humanity's capacity for art, music, and laughter. Now those qualities seemed to have vanished completely. The humans had become creatures of pure purpose, focused entirely on the task of rescuing their children. Dr. Veltar attempted to understand this transformation through conversation with Dr. Carter during one of her brief rest periods. "Doctor, I am curious about the psychological changes we are observing in your species. During our previous studies, humans displayed considerable creativity and emotional expression. Now you appear to have suppressed those qualities entirely." Dr. Carter looked at him with eyes that seemed much older than they had just days before. "Dr. Veltar, what you are seeing is not suppression. This is what we actually are. Everything. Else the art, the music, the poetry, those are things we build when our children are safe. When they are threatened, you see what evolution made us." She paused, then continued in a voice that carried the weight of absolute certainty. "We are persistence hunters, Doctor. We evolved to chase our prey across vast distances, to never give up, never stop, never rest until we achieved our goal. For millions of years, that goal was survival. Now it is our children's safety." The alien student began to understand that they had fundamentally misinterpreted human nature. They had studied humans during their civilized state, when their deeper instincts were carefully channeled into creative and productive activities. They had mistaken this restraint for the full extent of human capability. Captain Stevens provided another insight during a brief conversation with student Nexar. "You folks have been watching us during peacetime," he explained while checking the targeting systems on his improvised weapons. "You saw us building things, making art, exploring space. That is what we do when we feel safe. When our kids are threatened, you see what we really are underneath all that civilization." The alien students realized they were witnessing the emergence of humanity's true nature. The gentle, creative beings they had studied were not fake, but they represented only one side of human psychology. When children were threatened, something much older and more primal took control. As the fleet approached the New Horizons' last known position, the alien students prepared themselves to witness humanity at war. They understood now that they were about to see something unprecedented in galactic history, a species that had evolved to never give up when protecting their young. Dr. Veltar made a final note in his research journal. "We have discovered that humans possess a duality we never suspected. They are simultaneously the most creative and most dangerous species we have encountered. When their children are safe, they build wonders. When their children are threatened, they become living weapons guided by love." The hunt was about to begin, and the alien students were terrified of what they might witness when humanity finally revealed its true face to the galaxy. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the New Horizons' last known position. What they found there would be recorded in galactic history as the moment everything changed between humanity and the rest of the known universe. 17. Ships hung in the darkness of space, arranged in a perfect defensive formation around 2 larger vessels. The alien students immediately recognized the tactical setup from their military studies. 15 Scar-Ran pirate cruisers formed an outer perimeter, their weapons trained outward to prevent any rescue attempts. In the center, the colony ship. New Horizon drifted helplessly, its engines dark and its hull showing the scorch marks of weapons fire. Next to the colony ship floated the pirates' flagship, a massive battle cruiser that bristled with heavy weapons and armor plating. The alien students knew from their research that this ship would be where the pirates kept their most valuable prisoners. Commander Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying the tactical display with cold precision. The friendly, casual human the alien students had known for 3 years was completely gone. In his place stood something that reminded them uncomfortably of the apex predators from their homeworlds. Sensor sweep confirms 1,500 life signs aboard the New Horizon, reported Captain Rodriguez from her exploration vessel. Additional scans show approximately 300 smaller life signs aboard the pirate flagship. Dr. Carter looked up from her tactical station with eyes that burned like ice. "The children?" she said in a voice that carried absolute certainty. "They moved the children to their command ship." The alien students watched in fascination as every human in the fleet received this information. The change was immediate and terrifying. Already focused and determined, the humans seemed to transform into something even more dangerous. Student Zekthan noted that several human crew members actually began showing physical signs of predatory arousal, dilated pupils, increased breathing, and muscle tension that suggested preparation for violence. Morrison opened a communication channel to the pirate flagship. The alien students expected lengthy negotiations, threats, and diplomatic maneuvering. Instead, they witnessed something that would become legendary throughout galactic civilization. The pirate commander appeared on screen, a heavily scarred Scar-Ran with the typical reptilian features of his species. Captain Vraktos had conducted dozens of successful raids against various civilizations, and his confidence showed in his casual posture and mocking expression. "So, the humans have come to play rescue," Vraktos said with obvious amusement. "You are badly outnumbered, and we hold your precious spawn aboard our flagship. I suggest you withdraw before we decide to demonstrate our displeasure with your interference." Morrison's response was delivered in a voice so calm and controlled that it made the alien student's survival instincts scream warnings. "Release our children and we will allow you to leave." Vraktos laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the communication system. "Allow us to leave? Human fool, we hold 300 of your spawn. You have no leverage here. We could space them one by one while you watch helplessly." The alien students expected Morrison to show anger, fear, or desperation. Instead, his expression never changed. When he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. "We are giving you one opportunity to survive this encounter. Take it." The pirate commander's amusement faded slightly as he studied Morrison's face. "You would not risk harming your precious young ones. Every species in the galaxy knows humans are soft when it comes to their children. You will negotiate, pay our price, and thank us for our mercy." Morrison looked directly into the camera, and the alien students felt terror run through their bodies despite knowing the gaze was not directed at them. "You would not risk harming your precious young ones," he repeated slowly. "That is where you are wrong, Captain. You fundamentally misunderstand what you are dealing with." Dr. Carter stepped into view of the camera, and her presence seemed to make the temperature in the room drop. "Captain Vraktos, you have made a mistake that will cost you everything. You could have taken our adults, our cargo, our technology, and we would have negotiated. But you touched our children." The pirate commander's confident expression began to crack as he studied the humans on his screen. Something in their faces, their posture, their absolute stillness was triggering primitive warnings in his predatory brain. Morrison closed the communication channel without another word and turned to his tactical officer. All ships, weapons free. Primary objective, save the children. Secondary objective, ensure this never happens again. The alien students realized they were about to witness something unprecedented in galactic warfare. Most species approached combat with careful calculation, seeking to minimize losses while achieving strategic objectives. The humans were about to demonstrate a completely different approach to warfare. "Begin the attack," Morrison ordered. What followed was 17 minutes of violence that redefined the alien students' understanding of what was possible in space combat. The human fleet moved with coordination that seemed impossible for such a hastily assembled force. Every ship knew exactly what to do, as if they had rehearsed this operation for years instead of days. Captain Stevens, in his converted freighter, drove straight through the pirate formation, his mining lasers cutting through enemy shields like they were made of paper. The pirates had expected him to maintain a safe distance, using his weapons for long-range support. Instead, he used his ship like a battering ram, accepting damage to his own vessel in order to create openings for the smaller human ships. Captain Rodriguez coordinated the rescue operation with precision that amazed even the most experienced military students among the alien observers. Her exploration vessel, never designed for combat, somehow managed to dock with the New Horizon under heavy fire while simultaneously providing sensor data to guide the rest of the fleet. But it was Dr. Carter who provided the most shocking demonstration of human capability. The gentle scientist who had patiently explained human culture armed herself with nothing more than a plasma-cutting tool and led a boarding party onto the pirate flagship. The alien students watched through remote cameras as she moved through the enemy ship's corridors. The caring, nurturing woman they had studied for months had become something that defied description. She fought with the focused intensity of a mother defending her young, which was exactly what she was doing. When she reached the holding cells where the children were imprisoned, her efficiency was terrifying. She cut through the security doors in seconds, organized the evacuation with military precision, and fought off pirate defenders with a ferocity that left the alien students speechless. The battle ended when the last pirate vessel either surrendered or was destroyed. The human fleet had achieved complete victory while successfully rescuing every single child from the flagship. The alien students had witnessed something that challenged every assumption they held about warfare, sacrifice, and the limits of species determination. As the rescued children were reunited with their families aboard the New Horizon, Dr. Veltar realized that everything the Galactic Educational Consortium thought they knew about humanity was wrong. They had been studying a species in its resting state and had mistaken restraint for weakness. Student Morash pulsed with colors that indicated profound confusion and fear. "They were willing to sacrifice everything," she whispered to her companions. "Ships, lives, their entire military presence in this sector, all for children who were not even their own offspring." The alien students began to understand that they had witnessed something unique in galactic civilization, a species that would literally burn the stars themselves before allowing harm to come to their young. The humans had not just won a battle. They had revealed the terrifying depths of their protective instincts to anyone who might be watching. As the human fleet regrouped around the rescued colony ship, the alien students prepared to document what they had learned. They had come to study an interesting species and discovered something that would make the galaxy tremble. The journey back to the research station passed in silence that spoke louder than any words could have. The alien students sat in their observation deck, trying to process what they had witnessed. The 17 minutes of combat had shattered everything they thought they understood about human nature and galactic civilization itself. Dr. Veltar stared out at the stars, his crystalline body reflecting the light in patterns that showed his deep confusion. In 3 years of careful study, he had cataloged human art, music, literature, and social structures. He had documented their unusual emotional bonds and their tendency to treat other species with kindness and generosity. Nothing in his research had prepared him for what he had just observed. Student Zekthan worked frantically at his data console, trying to organize his recordings of the battle. His forearms moved quickly as he cataloged the tactical decisions, the coordination between ships, and the transformation of individual humans from peaceful civilians into deadly warriors. The mantis-like alien knew that his professors would never believe what he had to report. They were willing to die for children who were not their own, he said to his study partner. Captain Stevens risked his ship and crew for people he had never met. Dr. Carter led a boarding action against trained pirates to rescue children she did not know. This behavior contradicts every model of rational species survival we have studied. Moresh floated nearby, her jellyfish-like body still pulsing with the confused colors that indicated deep emotional disturbance. It was not rational, she agreed. But it was not random either. Every human in that fleet acted with the same purpose, the same determination, as if they were following programming that went deeper than conscious thought. The alien students had grown up believing that the galaxy operated according to certain universal principles. Species competed for resources, protected their own genetic lines, and made calculated decisions based on survival advantages. What they had witnessed challenged those fundamental assumptions. Near the back of the observation deck, the 3 Sectar students huddled together, their reptilian scales showing the dark colors that indicated fear and confusion. In their culture, the weak were abandoned so that resources could be focused on the strong. The idea of risking everything to protect children who might not even survive to contribute to the species made no sense to them. The humans fought like their entire species would die if those children were lost, observed Nexar. They showed more ferocity protecting other people's offspring than most species show defending their own territories. Commander Morrison had barely spoken since the battle ended. The friendly, casual human the alien students had known was slowly returning, but something had changed permanently. When he looked at the alien observers now, his eyes held knowledge that made them deeply uncomfortable. Dr. Carter spent most of the return journey with the rescued children, helping to treat their injuries and trauma. The alien students watched her interactions with fascination and growing unease. The terrifying warrior, who had cut through enemy defenses with ruthless efficiency, was gone. In her place was the gentle scientist they remembered, reading stories, to frighten children and singing soft songs to help them sleep. The transformation was so complete that several alien students began to wonder if humans possessed multiple personalities that emerged under different circumstances. The caring, nurturing behavior seemed just as genuine as the deadly violence they had witnessed during the battle. On the final day of their journey, Dr. Veltar requested a private meeting with Commander Morrison and Dr. Carter. He needed to understand what he had witnessed before he submitted his report to the Galactic Educational Consortium. Commander, Doctor, I must confess that our research conclusions have been completely overturned by recent events, he began carefully. We believed we understood human nature based on 3 years of observation. Clearly, we were mistaken. Morrison sat back in his chair, studying the alien researcher with eyes that seemed much older than they had just a week before. Dr. Veltar, you were not mistaken about what you observed. You were only seeing part of who we are. The art, the music, the poetry, the scientific research, all of that is genuine. That is what we build when our children are safe. Dr. Carter leaned forward, her voice gentle, but carrying an undertone of absolute certainty. What you witnessed during the battle is also genuine. That is what we become when our children are threatened. Both aspects are equally true and equally human. The alien researcher struggled to understand this duality. But how can the same species create beautiful art and wage such devastating warfare? How can individuals transform so completely from one state to another? Because that is what evolution made us, Morrison explained simply. We are persistence hunters, Doctor. We evolved to never give up, never stop pursuing our goals until we achieved them. For millions of years, that goal was survival. Now it is protecting our future, which is embodied in every human child. Dr. Carter added her own perspective as a scientist. Most species in the galaxy produce many offspring and accept that only the strongest will survive. Humans evolved differently. We have few children, but we protect each one with everything we have. This strategy has proven remarkably successful. Dr. Veltar began to understand that the alien students had been studying humanity during peacetime, when their deeper instincts were carefully channeled into creative and productive activities. They had mistaken this restraint for the full extent of human nature. So the transformation we observed was not an abnormal response, he said slowly. It was the activation of your species' core survival programming. Exactly, Morrison confirmed. You have been watching us in our resting state. When our children are threatened, you see what we actually are underneath all the civilization and culture. The alien researcher made careful notes as he prepared his final report. He knew that his conclusions would reshape galactic understanding of humanity and influence interstellar relations for generations to come. When they returned to the research station, Dr. Veltar immediately began working on his report to the Galactic Educational Consortium. The document would become required reading at universities across known space and would fundamentally alter how other species approached diplomatic relations with humanity. His key finding was simple but profound. We have been studying humans incorrectly. We observed them in their resting state and mistook restraint for weakness. When their young are threatened, humans become something unprecedented in galactic civilization, a species that will sacrifice everything, risk everything, and destroy everything necessary to protect their children. Student Zekthan submitted his own observations, which became equally influential in academic circles. Other species fight for territory, resources, or glory. Humans fight for the future itself, embodied in every child they protect. This makes them simultaneously the most dangerous and most noble species in the galaxy. The alien students' report spread quickly through galactic communication networks. Species that had considered humanity to be interesting but harmless began to reassess their assumptions. The Skaran Confederacy, after learning the fate of Captain Vraktos and his fleet, issued new orders forbidding any attacks on human settlements. More importantly, the reports led to a new understanding of human psychology that influenced everything from trade negotiations to military alliances. Galactic civilization learned that humans were most dangerous when they appeared most peaceful, because that peace was maintained by the absolute knowledge that they would become living weapons if their children were threatened. The Human Observation program was quietly discontinued. The Galactic Educational Consortium issued a new directive regarding human space. Observe from a distance, study their achievements and their culture, but never under any circumstances threaten their young. The alien students returned to their home worlds, carrying stories that would reshape galactic civilization. They had come to study an interesting species and discovered something that would make the galaxy tremble. A race that loved so fiercely. They would burn the stars themselves before allowing harm to come to their children. The research station remained in orbit around Earth's moon, but its purpose had changed completely. It was no longer an observation post for studying a curious new species. It had become a reminder to anyone who might forget the lesson learned that day. Humanity's young were the most protected resource in the galaxy, guarded by beings who had conquered their own world through sheer determination and now applied that same terrifying focus to the stars themselves. In the end, the alien students had learned the most important truth about humanity. They were not just another spacefaring species exploring the galaxy. They were the guardians of the future, and they would fight with the fury of evolution itself to protect what they loved most.